Before the first pyramids rose in Egypt, and long before the Great Walls of Rome or the temples of Sumer, humanity was already constructing societies of remarkable sophistication in a frozen world that stretched across continents, a world dominated by glaciers, mammoths, and the harshest of climates, yet populated by humans who, though few in number, displayed ingenuity, cooperation, and cultural complexity far beyond what most imagine when they think of the Ice Age. Across Europe, Asia, and the Americas, people organized themselves into social hierarchies, developed long-distance trade networks, created ritual practices, and engaged in the earliest forms of politics and proto-warfare, building systems of interaction that prefigured the civilizations that would arise tens of thousands of years later. And evidence of these achievements has been painstakingly unearthed by archaeologists and anthropologists who are gradually rewriting our understanding of prehistory. In Eastern Europe, vast settlements constructed from mammoth bones, tusks, and hide reveal communities capable of engineering feats that rivaled the first stone constructions of later cities, with burial sites richly adorned with red ochre, ivory, and ornaments that suggest inherited status, spiritual authority, and social hierarchy, demonstrating that leadership was earned and ritualized rather than imposed purely through strength, while the placement of structures and tools indicates careful planning, resource management, and a communal vision that allows societies to thrive under conditions of extreme cold and limited resources. Seasonal gatherings, where hundreds or even thousands of individuals converged, functioned as proto-cities, facilitating trade, marriage alliances, knowledge sharing, and collective decision-making, while evidence from Siberian mega-camps shows that humans coordinated labor, hunting, and construction on a scale that implies complex social organization, communication networks, and the earliest forms of governance. Long-distance trade connected communities across hundreds of kilometers, with obsidian from distant volcanoes, marine shells from faraway coasts, and pigments such as ochre exchanged not only for practical use but also as symbolic markers of status, identity, and cultural affiliation, reflecting a level of social sophistication that challenges the assumption that civilization required urban centers or writing to exist. Across Beringia, the land bridge linking Siberia and the Americas, humans carried tools, symbolic practices, and knowledge across continents, establishing early networks that would shape pre-Clovis populations in the New World, where sites like Monteverde in Chile, the Galt site in Texas, and White Sands in New Mexico demonstrate organized settlements, labor specialization, strategic hunting practices, and evidence of social negotiation and territorial management, revealing a society capable of both cooperation and conflict. Leadership in these Ice Age societies was multifaceted, combining hunting skill, ritual authority, and social intelligence, often mediated through councils or assemblies that balance merit, tradition, and consensus, suggesting the earliest forms of political organization and proto-diplomacy, while archaeological evidence of injuries, defensive positions, and fortified areas reveals that conflict, though structured and intermittent, was an important driver in social evolution, encouraging strategic thinking, alliance building, and negotiation. Symbolism and ritual played central roles in daily life, with artifacts, carvings, and ceremonial arrangements serving as instruments for social cohesion, transmission of knowledge, and reinforcement of authority, demonstrating that culture and governance were intertwined even tens of thousands of years before formalized writing or urban centers existed. Ice Age humans demonstrated remarkable cognitive sophistication, with planning, foresight, and abstraction evident in their tools, art, and architecture, showing that early humans were capable of innovation, problem-solving, and collective action in environments of extreme challenge, mastering the movements of megafauna, predicting seasonal cycles, and creating networks of knowledge and social connection that allowed their communities to thrive. The construction of mammoth-bone structures required coordination, labor management, and long-term planning, while pigment caches, carved figurines, and ceremonial artifacts indicate a society that valued memory, identity, and social continuity, transmitting lessons and authority across generations, a practice that would underpin all later human civilizations. Across continents, humans created networks of trade, marriage, ritual, and communication that connected disparate communities, fostering cooperation, cultural cohesion, and shared innovation, while simultaneously navigating the tensions of competition and rivalry, balancing cooperation and rivalry in ways that required nuanced social understanding and strategic foresight. These societies were not simply surviving, they were shaping their world with intention, embedding knowledge into their material culture and social structures, and creating invisible systems of governance, social order, and cultural memory that would resonate across millennia. Evidence from Europe, Siberia, and the Americas shows that even in harsh Ice Age environments, humans organized themselves with a level of complexity that rivals later Bronze Age civilizations, developing proto-economic systems, ritual institutions, and political hierarchies, demonstrating that the foundation of civilization was being laid tens of thousands of years before recorded history. Every artifact, from finely crafted blades and spear points to pigments and figurines, tells a story of cognitive sophistication, social intelligence, and cultural continuity, revealing that the Ice Age was not a period of simple survival, but a crucible of innovation, social organization, and cultural expression, where humans learned to negotiate, cooperate, and compete in ways that shaped the course of history long before cities or states existed. Seasonal migrations, management of megafauna, and coordination of communal hunts demanded collective strategy and leadership, while ritual practice, symbolic artifacts, and social norms ensured cohesion and identity, proving that humans were capable of constructing complex social networks and governance systems even in the most challenging of environments. Across Eurasia and the Americas, Ice Age humans demonstrated ingenuity, adaptability, and intelligence, creating the first invisible threads of trade, diplomacy, and cultural transmission, linking communities across vast distances and establishing systems of knowledge and authority that would endure and evolve over tens of thousands of years, laying the groundwork for the eventual rise of urban civilization and formalized states. These early societies, though often invisible beneath ice, soil, and time, show a human story of remarkable resilience, creativity, and ambition, with the cognitive, social, and cultural foundations of civilization already in place, challenging the conventional view that history began with cities, writing, or kings, and revealing that humanity's capacity for organization, leadership, art, and cultural complexity stretches far deeper into prehistory than previously imagined, demonstrating that the story of civilization begins not with recorded history, but with these extraordinary communities thriving amidst glaciers, mammoths, and relentless environmental challenge, forging alliances, building structures, and creating meaning in ways that would resonate for millennia. As we leave behind the mammoth-bone settlements of Europe and the mega-camps of Siberia and step into the Americas, it becomes increasingly clear that Ice Age humans were operating on a scale of social, political, and cultural sophistication that far exceeds any prior assumptions. For here, in the vast landscapes of pre-Clovis North and South America, people were not merely surviving, but actively shaping their environments, coordinating seasonal migrations, constructing settlements with deliberate spatial organization, and managing resources in ways that allowed communities to thrive for generations, despite harsh climates and limited technology. While evidence of social differentiation, labor specialization, and ceremonial practice indicates a society deeply attuned to both its members and the wider network of groups with which it interacted. Sites such as Monteverde, Galt, and White Sands reveal settlements with clearly defined living spaces, storage areas for food and tools, and evidence of ritualized activity, suggesting that these were not temporary hunting camps, but intentional constructions designed to support social cohesion, facilitate decision-making, and allow for cooperation across complex groups, while long-distance trade of obsidian, marine shells, and pigments demonstrates an early form of economy, where objects were valued not only for utility, but for symbolic and social significance, reflecting alliances, status, and shared cultural identity that spanned hundreds of kilometers. Leadership in these communities was multifaceted, integrating hunting prowess, spiritual authority, and social intelligence, often mediated through informal councils or assemblies that distributed power, resolved disputes, and coordinated collective action, demonstrating a nuanced understanding of governance, negotiation, and the balancing of individual and communal needs that would echo in the political structures of later civilizations. While evidence of strategic conflict, fortified areas, and defensive positioning indicates that warfare, though limited, was practiced with planning and social consideration rather than chaotic violence, contributing to the evolution of territoriality, strategy, and diplomacy. Ritual and symbolic expression permeated these societies, with carved figurines, ochre pigmentation, and ceremonial arrangements serving both as spiritual instruments and as mechanisms for social cohesion, transmitting knowledge, reinforcing hierarchy, and creating shared meaning across generations, while the careful placement of artifacts and structures suggests a sophisticated understanding of the power of memory, symbolism, and identity in maintaining societal stability. Across Beringia, the land bridge connecting Siberia to the Americas, humans carried not only genetic material, but also ideas, technologies, and cultural practices, establishing early networks that link distant populations, facilitated innovation, and ensured the transmission of skills, knowledge, and ritual practice across continents, all while adapting to extreme environmental conditions that demanded ingenuity, cooperation, and foresight. The management of megafauna, including mammoths, bison, and reindeer, required sophisticated ecological knowledge, planning, and coordination, with hunting strategies that depended on communication, timing, and collective action, reflecting both environmental intelligence and social organization. While the construction of shelters, ritual spaces, and communal structures indicates a capacity for architectural planning, resource allocation, and engineering that would not be surpassed for millennia. Ice Age humans were deeply aware of their surroundings and the consequences of their actions, developing complex social rules, cultural norms, and symbolic practices that governed behavior, resolved conflicts, and maintained cohesion, demonstrating that cognition, foresight, and social intelligence were as central to survival as physical skill and endurance. Trade networks, ceremonial gatherings, and seasonal migrations were not incidental, but central to maintaining alliances, distributing knowledge, and ensuring communal stability, creating proto-economic, political, and cultural systems that allowed humans to negotiate scarcity, exchange innovation, and coordinate action across vast distances. The integration of ritual, hierarchy, and economic interaction created societies in which governance, culture, and survival were inseparable, proving that humans were capable of creating enduring social frameworks and cultural memory long before cities, writing, or kingdoms emerged. Archaeological evidence of tools, pigments, and symbolic artifacts demonstrates a cognitive sophistication in planning, abstraction, and problem-solving, while the placement of graves, ceremonial items, and public spaces indicates a social intelligence attuned to identity, memory, and continuity. From Europe to Siberia and across the Americas, humans were constructing complex social networks, creating systems of interaction, trade, ritual, and governance that would persist and evolve, showing that civilization did not appear suddenly, but emerged gradually from the accumulated innovations, cooperation, and ingenuity of Ice Age communities. These early humans were not only hunters and gatherers, but also strategists, diplomats, artisans, and ritualists, capable of planning long-term projects, coordinating large groups, and transmitting knowledge and cultural values across generations, forming the first invisible structures of governance and cultural continuity that underpin all later civilizations. Social organization was reinforced by ritual, art, and symbolic expression, with every pigment, tool, and ceremonial object acting as a vehicle for memory, authority, and identity, creating cultural cohesion and ensuring the persistence of knowledge across time, while long-distance trade connected disparate communities, allowing for the exchange of ideas, technology, and social norms, and fostering networks of interdependence and collaboration that would prefigure the economic and political systems of the historical era. Leadership in these communities was both practical and symbolic, balancing merit, ritual authority, and social negotiation, with councils and assemblies mediating disputes, allocating resources, and orchestrating communal labor, demonstrating that political thought, diplomacy, and governance have deep roots extending tens of thousands of years into prehistory, and that the principles underlying states, kingdoms, and empires were being practiced in embryonic form long before written history. Conflict and competition were present, yet managed, structured, and strategic, teaching lessons about negotiation, territory, and alliance building, while ritual, art, and communal practice ensured cohesion, identity, and continuity, creating societies that were resilient, adaptable, and sophisticated. Ice Age humans were active participants in their environment, shaping landscapes, manipulating resources, and creating enduring cultural and social legacies, demonstrating that civilization is not defined solely by cities, writing, or monumental architecture, but by the capacity for organization, governance, ritual, and collective action, all of which were already present in these extraordinary communities. Across continents, evidence of settlement planning, seasonal coordination, trade networks, and ritualized behavior reveals the depth of social, cognitive, and cultural complexity, proving that the roots of human civilization are far older than previously imagined, and that humanity's capacity for ingenuity, cooperation, and cultural expression stretches back tens of thousands of years into the Ice Age. From mammoth-bone villages in Europe to Siberian ceremonial sites and pre-Clovis settlements in the Americas, the archaeological record preserves a story of human resilience, intelligence, and ambition, showing us that the first empires were not built of stone and brick, but of social networks, trade, ritual, and knowledge, and that these invisible structures provided the foundation upon which all later civilizations would rise. These Ice Age societies, though often hidden beneath glaciers, soil, and time, demonstrate that humans were capable of creating worlds, negotiating alliances, managing resources, and transmitting culture and authority across generations long before the first cities or states appeared, proving that the essence of civilization, hierarchy, trade, diplomacy, ritual, and governance was already alive in humanity tens of thousands of years before history officially began, and that the story of civilization begins not with kings, scribes, or monumental stone, but with ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances who, in a world of ice, mammoths, and relentless environmental challenge, built societies, forged networks, and created enduring legacies whose traces continue to illuminate the origins of human complexity, ingenuity, and culture, reminding us that the foundations of all that we call civilization were laid long before the first written record, in the frozen landscapes of the Ice Age, by humans whose intelligence, ambition, and creativity shaped the very course of history.